When I was at the Skowhegan School, painting and sculpture in 1953, I was under the tutelage of Jack Levine as a painter, one of the foremost painters of the 20th century who concentrated on social commentary art, commenting on political scenes, on the racial scenes and things like that. And so it was one of the things that struck me as being something that my art could fit into and be useful for.
I went back with the notion that I was going to do that. I'm going to paint images that are just going to be so mighty and important that people are going to stop and look at them and really understand what I'm saying.
As it turned out, I found out that that really wasn't what I wanted to do after I painted what I would consider to be major works. A piece called Behold Thy Son, which incidentally is now in the National Museum of African American History and Culture of the Smithsonian in Washington. I would say it was a successful painting in some ways, in that it brought to the viewer my view of racism, of segregation, the horrors of how we had interpreted the law in the South, especially as it related to African Americans, and the killing of this 14-year-old child from Chicago, Emmett Till, simply because it was said that he whistled at a white woman.
Even though that piece is in a museum now, and I would say to a certain extent it's successful, but it convinced me that that was not my calling. But I had to get that out of my system cathartically. It cleansed me, and it allowed me to know that somebody else could do the narrative better than I.
This really gave me a chance to see whether or not that was the kind of painting I wanted to devote my life to. And I found out that it wasn't. It was a cathartic moment for me, and I found out that I really didn't want to do that because I felt that other artists in other media could do it better than I, perhaps in filmmaking, in writing, in other such related areas. At the age of 25, I was already a college professor and interacting with the social scenes. This was during the Civil Rights Movement. I was living in Alabama at that time, and the social scene as far as African Americans was concerned was very active. The Montgomery bus boycott was getting underway. There was a situation with Autry and Lucy down at the University of Alabama. And so many of those things kind of fitted into how I was looking at society.
I said, okay, I don't want to paint people anymore. They're too ugly, they're too mean. And so I started, painting pine trees. And where else better than the state of Maine? And so the pine became a solstice of spirituality and so many other things for me in those days. And I still paint pines. If you need one, just let me know. But those early pines were a substitute for the inhumane treatment in certain ways, if one can say that. The narrative was that I can do this and feel relieved of the misery of our inhumanity to each other.
With the kind of treatment that I saw African Americans receiving at that time and being sanctioned by the state, because segregation was state sanctioned, and racism, of course, followed that same line. The law really did not protect you, but so much. And so in trying to decipher all of this, to say that art had a service that could be performed, I came to the conclusion that the service that I could render was the beauty of art, to enhance one's soul and not really be making drastic statements about the inhumanity of our brother and so on against the other.